Hey everyone, happy day of appreciating each other and celebrating. I wish I could be there with you in person to celebrate all the great work that you do for our team and Open Door and for the community. And I wish I could be there in person to say thank you and see you next time to our great friend Yesid. I recorded this video because I really wanted to share a few stories about Yesid with everyone. And I wrote these things down and I'm going to read it so I can stay on track. So, Yesid, nothing would make me happier than to embarrass you just a little while you're here in the spotlight on this day of thankfulness before you close this door on your time with us at Open Door. Everyone in the room knows what a special person you are and what dedication you have had to improving the lives of the Latino community in Del Norte and beyond. I also had the privilege of growing an incredible friendship with you. And I think we made a lot of special memories together over the last years. I wanted to share a few stories that maybe everybody doesn't know about you. So shortly after Yesid was hired, a group of us piled into a minivan that we rented, and we drove to Sacramento for a conference. So Jen and Yesid and I sat together in the back row of the van with Jared up at the wheel, up front driving. And like all great road trips, we got out of the van 5 hours later, knowing a lot more about each other than when we started. And for reference, Yesid wasn't really confident in his English at the time, and I understand only a little bit of Spanish. So the three of us talked across our languages for the whole ride. And with what happens in the van stays in the van, but I will share that we sang a whole lot of pop music on that ride. So this was Yesid's first ever trip to Sacramento. And I doubt that there has ever been any other Open Door conference that was as well photographed as this trip. Most of you know that Yesid's one true great love is buildings. So this guy loves buildings. I mean, we knew that his past career had been in architecture and that was also where his education was, though none of us could have known how much he really loved buildings. He enthusiastically dragged around an entire group of us from building to building to building, taking photos all over downtown Sacramento. His enthusiasm was contagious, and I think we all loved buildings just a little bit after what felt like probably the 457th group selfie in pretty much one night. It was also Yesid's birthday that day, and we traveled with a full-size sheet cake in the back of the van. I'm pretty sure that Yesid got 457 WhatsApp messages from his friends all over the world that day. Up till that point, Yesid had been super low-key and so humble, and then it turns out he's kind of a really big deal. Also, at this point, he'd been stringently anti-Facebook, and I really couldn't understand how a person with that many WhatsApp friends was against Facebook. And he didn't yet have all of the words to express himself, so he'd just smile at me a little and say, no, whenever I brought up Facebook. Turns out running the Facebook for his program is a requirement of the job, and he's really good at it. So many of you know that Yesid loves to travel. Most of the time, when you have a friend who loves to travel, they might ask you to pet sit or house sit, not Yesid. My husband and I, many times, had the great honor of taking care of Yesid's car while he traveled around the world. Do you know how much Yesid loves his car? Have you ever met a person who took better care of their car than Yesid? Do you know how much pressure it is to be responsible for the most well taken care of car on the North Coast for up to a month at a time? It was a pleasure to do this favor for our dear friend, and when I announced I was moving away from Humboldt, Yesid said, "Oh no, I will miss you." And then he said without missing a beat, "And where will I park my car while I travel?" So maybe it's my fault for Yesid moving back to Columbia. Maybe if I'd stayed in McKinleyville and sustained his vacation parking spot, he wouldn't be leaving us now. All of you know that living in a rural community and working for such a big company like Open Door means that sometimes there is gray area in our relationships. Family members and spouses work with each other, and coworkers become friends, and sometimes you even become friends with your boss or your boss's boss. I think this was a major cultural shift for Yesid and something he had to learn as he went along. And sometimes, if you're Yesid, you show up to your boss's house right before 7 a.m. on Christmas morning to park your car before you head out on a big trip, and you're greeted by your boss's boss in her pajamas with reindeer antlers and ushered inside to sit by the fire and forced to eat copious sugary Christmas breakfast foods while listening to Christmas music. And if you're like Yesid, you have great restraint for sugary Christmas breakfast foods, but if you're also like Yesid, you have profound sense of duty to receive this hospitality. And you might find yourself getting on an international flight with a serious bellyache. But what's more important in this story is that Yesid does not drink very much alcohol in general, though seeing that it was 7 a.m. on Christmas morning and he was going to spend no less than 20 hours traveling, I insisted that he drink several sugary Christmas cocktails. Several. So in the spirit of gray area in our relationships and our small and unique rural community, one of the greatest Christmas mornings in recent history included Yesid getting on an airplane, absolutely drunk, after I joyfully filled him with all kinds of sugar and booze. Yesid, I'm really happy for you that you've made a great big decision to move back to Colombia, and I'm so happy to have the opportunity to know you and that you built the Latino Health Program for Del Norte and that we got to do that together. Your contributions will last for a long time after you leave Crescent City. I wanted to send you away with a small gift of appreciation, and this was no easy task. Yesid is one of the most thoughtful gift givers I've ever known, and he has really great taste also. Every time he'd show up to our house to drop off his car for car sitting before he'd travel, he'd have a giant suitcase and a small backpack. And it turns out that the giant suitcase was full of gifts to bring back to loved ones in Colombia, and the backpack had the things he needed for himself for travel. He'd always return to us here in California with gifts from his travel. I have some really lovely and meaningful things from Yesid. Sometimes it was strange how great he was at picking out just the right gift. The whole time I've been with my husband, Mike, he's used the same brown leather wallet that was given to him when he was 18, and it had belonged to his grandfather. And a few years ago, it really started to fall apart. And Yesid had no way of knowing this. And do you know what he brought Mike back from his trip from Italy? Yep, a leather wallet. A beautiful blue one that was nearly exactly like the old brown one that had belonged to Mike's grandfather. It might be one of the best gifts that Mike has ever received, and he uses it every day. So no pressure, right? I want to send a little something to Yesid. I wanted to find something meaningful. So I started brainstorming and I put some things in an Amazon cart that inspired me. And then I had this great idea. I thought I'd ask Cynthia for some inspiration. So Cynthia is smart and thoughtful, and she knows Yesid better than any of us do. And she made all kinds of really great points to me about what not to get Yesid. And let's just say that I may or may not have had the exact things she suggested that I should not get him in my Amazon cart. So I decided that Yesid is a talented gift giver, and perhaps I have other talents and I should let myself off the hook with the pressure. So when I was out and about looking for a gift for the exchange part of this meeting, I saw a little magnet that says, "We love California." And this is a tiny gesture that can't really express my appreciation for Yesid as a person, a friend, or a coworker, though I hope he can put it on his fridge in his new place and think of the silly times we had together and of our friendship. I also found some luggage tags from Building Healthy Communities when I was at a conference in San Diego earlier in the fall. And maybe Yesid, as he continues to travel the world, he can use these luggage tags, and maybe someone will ask him what the tags mean, and he'll talk about us and the work we all do together to make the North Coast a better place. And these little tokens will come in the mail to you, Yesid, in the office in the next day or so. When Hilda and I sat across the table to interview Yesid, he'd nearly given up on finding a job that could keep him rooted to Crescent City in the United States. He later told us that he had given himself a time frame, and basically he was 1 month away from that time frame of deciding to go back to Colombia. And then it worked out. He was the right person for us, and it turns out that we were the right job for him. It was kismet. He came to the table with passion, humility, intelligence, willingness to learn and grow, an incredible amount of experience in his home country and in his previous career, and a giving heart. He felt concerned that perhaps his English wasn't strong enough to work for a corporation like Open Door. We interviewed several people that day, and Yesid was our top candidate. Here we are, these years later, sending off a person even more accomplished than when we met him, now fully bilingual, a dual citizen of 2 great countries, and a person who I feel truly better for knowing. Thanks for everything you've given us, and I wish you well on your next chapter. This isn't goodbye, it's see you next time.